Now, as long as it don't
I
start
think we
raining,
sneak by.
Yeah.
that's what's going to do. Call this meeting, the Harlan Township Board of Trustees, to order. As a reminder, the meeting is being audio and video recorded. Please don't forget to sign in. Would you please stand and join me in a pledge of allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jenny, would you please read the minutes from the previous session?
The Board of Trustees of Harlan Township met in regular session this 21st day of August, 2024, at regular meeting place of 8276 State Route 132. Trustees Edward Prajinski and Marcus Shelton present. Meeting called to order by Mr. Shelton at 7 p.m. Mr. Shelton asked all present to stand and say a pledge of allegiance. Minutes read from regular session August 9, 2024. Mr. Prajinski made a motion to approve minutes as read, seconded by Mr. Shelton. Chief Hennick reported received resignation from Emily Prajinski from Fire Department. Mr. Prajinski made a motion to accept resignation from Emily Prajinski, seconded by Mr. Shelton. Chief Hennick reported received resignation from Lauren Stabler from Fire Department. Mr. Shelton made a motion to accept resignation from Lauren Stabler, seconded by Mr. Prajinski. Chief Hennick reported received resignation from Jeff Schaefer from Fire Department. Mr. Shelton made a motion to accept resignation from Jeff Schaefer, seconded by Mr. Prajinski. Chief Hennick reported Fire Department membership voted to place Eric Peabody for 1 year probationary membership. Mr. Prajinski made a motion to accept 1 year probationary membership of Eric Peabody, seconded by Mr. Shelton. Chief Hennick reported Fire Department membership voted to place Chad Elbin for 1 year probation membership. Mr. Shelton made a motion to accept 1 year probationary membership for Chad Elbin, seconded by Mr. Prajinski. Chief Hennick reported Fire Department membership voted to place Nicholas Branham for 1 year probationary membership. Mr. Prajinski made a motion to accept Mr. 1 year probationary membership for Nicholas Branham, seconded by Mr. Shelton. Chief Hennick reported Old Squad 82 placed on Gov deals with bids ending Tuesday, August 27, 2024. Mr. Mason reported culvert replacement on Wayne's Way completed. Mr. Mason reported Road Department started removing partition wall at Station 83, preparing for the new floor. Mr. Mason reported backflow testing completed at Station 81 and Butlerville, both paths. Mr. Mason reported cleanup has been completed from a recent storm. Mr. Mason completed the cemetery information update for the Department of Commerce. Old business, Mr. Shelton discussed Bright Acres Carnival was a success. Mr. Shelton reported signed road maintenance agreement with Washington Township. Mr. Shelton discussed have not received any response from the Woodville Joint Cemetery representative. New business, Mr. Shelton discussed Warren County Auditor Matt Nolan will be attending the September 4th meeting. Mr. Shelton reported Mr. Kern attending the Warren County Soil and Water Conservation meetings. Community comments, Bridget Ballard working with Gail for a possibility of ceremony at Butlerville. Ms. Williams gave written financial report to trustees. Mr. Prajinski made a motion to pay the bills, seconded by Mr. Shelton. We had no correspondence. Mr. Prajinski made a motion to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Shelton. Meeting adjourned at 7:15.
Mr. Prajinski, do you have any corrections or additions?
I do not.
I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes as read.
Second that.
Kevin, do you owe me a signature, I think?
Yeah. Steve, instead of doing the reports first tonight, we have Warren County Auditor Matt Nolan with us to give a presentation on the new tax evaluations. Mark? What's the best?
I'll get a click for you.
You're gonna click, all right. So the show is there to distract you from the excitement that is property taxes. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Trying to get out to every corner of the county. I know I was here last year, talking about different things, but I brought up that this was coming. And I think it's important that everybody knows what it is. As your county auditor, I am here to administer and to help educate. Not a ton I could do. I've done this presentation 19, 20 times now at this point. The first time I did it was for the county commissioners, and they told me it was too long, too boring, and that I needed to sum it up in one slide. So this is what I call the Dave Young slide. It is the one slide he wanted because it pretty much sums it up. There's really good things happening in Warren County. There's really good things happening in Harlan Township. Your value on your home has increased more in the last 3 years than at any time in American history, and human history for that matter. And that is a good thing. That is what we're all searching for. That's what we're all striving for. We want our values to increase. That has always been the goal, and that's happening more than ever. And so that's a good thing. You've got more equity in your home, more value in your home, which for many of us is our largest investment. And so that's the good thing. The bad thing is the Ohio property tax system. It is the most complicated formula. If you sat down, if all of us sat down for 2 days and said, how can we make the system as complicated as possible? No possible way we would come up with what they've created in the state of Ohio. And it's not ill-intentioned. It's not that they wanted to make it complicated. Mike Kilburn and I did a presentation 10 years ago. Mike was at when he was county commissioner, maybe longer, about that. And Mike said, you got to make this easier. I said, Mike, I can't make it easier. It is what it is. And they did it on trying to fix problems over the years. The legislature has made it a mess. And so it wasn't ill-intentioned. It was always trying to be helpful, but they used duct tape and bubble gum and just made it such a mess in fixing it in different ways that no one can understand. And so that's the bad part. And what's the ugly part? Your taxes are going to increase significantly. Everyone in this room. I don't know each of your individual situations. I can tell you there is no one in the county whose residential property taxes aren't increasing. And how many people in this room have CAUB? More than half, right? Most of the time when I give this presentation, that's not that relevant. To this group, it is. And they're increasing more than anybody. And so we're going to talk about what that is, why that is. But on average, the thing that you'll care about the most, your taxes, if you're not in CAUB, are going up 20%. Budget for that, plan for that. Ignore everything else I say. It doesn't really matter. That's what people care about. Your taxes are going up about 20%. If you're on CAUB, it's a lot more than that. So we'll get to why. So again, if you can put CAUB in the back of your mind, it comes at the end of the presentation. It's completely different than everything else. So we're going to talk about everything else and then we'll get to CAUB. Everything else, how do we value it? We value it based on sales. What are properties selling for? If you were going to list your house today, what would it sell for? If it's the number that I have or lower, we're doing our, or higher, we're doing our job right. So when you get your value change notice, it's going to say your house went up 30, 35, 38%. That's kind of the average in this area. Some of the bigger increases in the county. And that's because of the sales we're seeing and especially the sales of land. You cannot, not that long ago, 5,000 an acre. That was kind of what I thought. Just raw land, 5,000 an acre, kind of the number I always used. Who here wouldn't buy property if you saw it for 5,000 an acre, right? Every one of us would. You guys know what it's worth. On average, 10,000 minimum from a large acre tract that you're just farming, no development interest. Kind of 10,000. That's happened quick. Housing the same way. As we know, there's a shortage of housing. If a house goes on the market, it sells also almost instantly. And so that's what we're using. We're not using a dartboard. I'm not getting on Zillow and saying what they have. I'm looking for what would a property sell for based on the other sales that have happened. And so that's what we use to come up with our values. And it's over the last 3 years. So I'm going to show a little chart, but a lot of people are like, my house didn't go up this much since last year. Absolutely right. It did not. We haven't valued your house in 3 years. And so since 2021, how much has it gone up? That's what you've got to look at. And that's what our numbers reflecting.
What if it was valued this year?
You guys redid ours this year.
Oh yeah, so that's a good example. It depends if we. That's a really good. And I like people jumping in, so please do that. And it makes it. If you have a new construction, new house.
We added. It's not a new house.
Okay.
We just added. We made a kitchen bigger and added a patio.
Yeah. So
That's it.
all they picked up there was the new construction. They didn't pick up the value increase as a result of sales. All they were saying is, you pulled a permit and did this work. We're adding that. You're going to get another jump based on the sales.
Quite a bit.
Yeah, and so we'll talk about what the options are there.
What if it was new construction?
Yeah, so new construction, they usually kind of build in that there's going to be an increase. And so if we picked up a house this year, a lot of times, let's say it's a $300,000 house, we would have valued it at $240,000, knowing we're going to increase it next year, that additional 30% that we were doing to everybody else. Because we knew this was coming. This wasn't a surprise to anybody. Everybody here lives right on the border of Clinton County. Clinton County went through all of this last year, almost identically. You know, a lot of you may have property over there. It's all identical. Warren County has this unique advantage for me, a little bit of an advantage for you. Every single county that touches us by law has to reevaluate the year before us. And so Clinton, Claremont, Greene, Butler, Hamilton, Montgomery, every one of them always has to reevaluate the year before us. So we get to see how they screw it up. We get to see what they do, and we try to learn from it. And I try not to make the same mistakes they do. And so it's a big advantage for us. And so that's kind of how we do it. We knew, you know, was it going to be 27? Was it going to be 32? I wasn't sure, but it was in that range. So that's generally how we did it. So if you had brand new construction on a house, not on a shed or something like that, on a house, a full house, we valued it low, and it will come up this year in most cases. So again, sales. Everything we do is based on sales. 110,000 parcels in Warren County. And so we're not going through, I've never been in any of your houses. Nobody, Marcus, you never invited me over. I've never been there. So I've never seen your home on the inside. Driven by most of them, been around them all, but I've never been inside of them. So we're using mass appraisal. We're saying, what are other houses selling for? And we're making a lot of assumptions about what's inside your home based on that. Not that hard to do, because houses are commodities. To you guys, it's your home. To me, it's my home. But to the auditor, to an appraiser, it's just a building. It's just something that we have put a dollar amount on. It has no sentimental value to us. And so that's where it gets tricky, because it does to you, obviously, but it doesn't to us. It can't to us. We just have to say, hey, if this thing got listed today, what would it sell for based on what everything else would sell for? This is one of the hardest areas to do that. It's pretty easy in Hamilton Township. Everything's the same, right? You go into the Wedgewood subdivision, there's like 700 houses that all look exactly the same. If one sells for that amount, the one next to it's going to sell for real close to that. Not so much the case out here. Every house is a little unique. They're mostly custom homes, a lot of them built by the people that are living in them. So that gets a little trickier. And of those 110,000 we'll talk about, but I'd say we get it about 99% accurate, which is pretty good. Like, our team does a good job. But 110,000, that means there's 1,100 that we get wrong. So we'll talk about the process of how we can correct that if you think you fall into that category. Nobody cares about the value, really, right? When I come and talk, the value is important. That's what I do. I don't set your taxes. I set your value. But what you care about, really, is what your taxes are. That's what I care about, what my taxes are. And so what your taxes are, like I said, they're going up roughly 20% for most people. Where does that money go? The schools. Pretty much end of conversation. Every single conversation about property taxes begins, middles, ends public schools. The state decided 150 years ago, we're going to fund our public schools in Ohio through property taxes. No other state in America does it the way we do. There's good reasons behind it. It's made a real mess of things, but that's where it's all about. A little bit comes to the township. A little bit comes to the county. A little bit goes to DD and mental health. All of those are almost rounding errors. It's all about schools. And with this increase, it's even more about schools. On average, public schools get about 70% of your property tax dollars. Of the increase, they get about 85%. So this is all about schools. Little Miami, Clinton, Massey are about the same as to how their increases are. So I'll talk, my presentation is more about Little Miami, but if you're in Clinton, Massey, the number's about the same.
We're in Goshen.
Same thing. Everybody's the same. And if you're in Mason or Kings, different world. Everybody else around the county is identical into how it's going to affect them. Important here. Who gets $0? The fire department. Not one penny of this increase in value goes to the fire department. $0. A little bit to the general fund, a little bit to road and bridge. There will be an increase for those, but the fire department will not get a dime. Your county DD board, your mental health district, all of those other levies, they get nothing. Value goes up, rate comes down, they get nothing. It's only the inside millage, we call it, and the schools that get all of the increase. And the way it's set up now, it's all about school funding. So I give this whole presentation, I do a lot of talking. It's really about how we fund schools.
Can you explain a little bit more of why the fire department doesn't get extra?
Yeah, that's just how all levies work outside of the inside millage and the schools. When values go up, their rate comes down. When you vote on a levy, you're telling us, the auditor's office, you're telling the trustees, you get this amount of money. And that's all they get. As long as that levy exists, they can't get any more than that unless a new house is built, new construction happens, something like that. Then a little more money comes over, but you're telling them, if Harlan Township stays the same way it is, if values go up or values go down, it doesn't matter. We're paying you this amount of money. And so Ohio, again, I beat it up. There's a lot of negatives to how we do things. It's incredibly democratic, small d democratic, not the Democratic Party. Vote nowhere, not California even, votes as much as Ohio. We tell the voters, you want better fire services? You vote for it. You want better schools? You vote for it. Our elected officials have very little say in it. It's very democratic, which sounds like a good thing. I lived in Little Miami for most of my adult life. Most of you lived through the levy drama of 2000 to 2010 with me. Not always a good thing. It can be really nasty. It divides communities. It has a lot of negatives, but it is small d democratic in the way it works. This is the Nolan House. Just to show I'm with you guys in the same boat. Lebanon schools are going to act almost just like Little Miami schools, similar increases to what we've seen. My house goes up 28% next year. I bought it for $131,000 back in 14. Went up. This year it's getting appraised at $365,000. My wife says that's too high. I told her too bad. And so that's where we are. Just for the record, because I get this question a lot, the auditor's office gets $0 as a result of the reappraisal. It costs us $1 million to do the reappraisal. We get $0. I'm a politician. I come to ask for your vote every 4 years. It would be in my best interest not to reappraise your properties, right? I don't want to make you all mad. But this is what the law says we do. And this is how we do things in Ohio and almost every state that has property taxes. They do some form of this. We have to keep the values equalized so people are paying their fair share. So that's my house. I picked this.
Question, Matt. You've said a couple of times that property taxes are going to increase about 20%.
Yep.
But you've also talked about the 10 mils of inside millage. Can you differentiate? Because if somebody has a $4,000 tax bill, does that mean it's going to go up by $800?
That's what it means.
Okay. So when you say 20%, you're talking about across the board.
Across the board. Yep. Okay. That's exactly what it means. And so this is a great example right here. This is a random house. That's not that house. I use that in a different demonstration. So not that house, but I picked a random house in Harlan Township. In 2019, it was valued at $154. In 2021, when we did our last reval, went up 18%, which was pretty consistent across the county. What you see then is the taxes actually went down for a variety of reasons, partially because the county did a tax holiday. There were some different factors in there. But in 2019 and 2024, the taxes have gone up less than $100. And if you look at your property, I bet you're going to see the same. We've actually seen stagnant taxes across the board for almost everybody outside of CAUV over the last 5 years. There has been almost no increase in taxes unless you voted for a levy, which out here we haven't. And so it kind of surprised me, honestly. I've done this same slide for every jurisdiction I've gone to. This has had the smallest increase of anywhere in that time period. But then next year, I'm sorry, go back one from. Next year you see the increase coming, right? So this person's taxes, estimating, I don't know, there's a levy on the ballot, there's all kinds of things, but based on my fairly professional estimate, they're gonna go up to 3340, about 19%, over the last 6 years. So it's a big jump right now, but when you look at it with the advantage of time, you see really it's about a 3% increase a year, less than inflation, less than anything else we have. I don't like taxes. I don't like property taxes. I'm not defending them. Just bringing up a fact that assuming this is the way this plays out, that's how much people's taxes will be. The next slide shows just the general boring list. These are all the levies that you have. Somebody now that has a $100,000 house, next year's got a $125,000 house, their taxes are going to go up about that 20%. In this case, a little bit less, but right around that 20%. And you can see almost all of it, almost every dime, it's going to Little Miami Schools and the Career Center. And we can explain why, but if you just accept 20% and 18 of that 20%, it's going to Little Miami and the Career Center. That's just the facts. Not picking on Little Miami. Clinton Massey the same way. Goshen, same way. Everybody, Lebanon, Springboro, Carlisle, Franklin, Wayne, every single one of them, same exact boat. Mason and Kings, a little different, but everybody else is in the same boat, 20% increase. And so.
Why is King's different?
Kings has the highest taxes in the county by far.
Yeah.
And so their taxes are going up more than everybody else's because they voted on a levy, a large bond levy. So their taxes are the highest increase in the county, not because of the value increase, but because of the levy they voted on. So theirs is the highest. Mason, happy to discuss sometime. If you got the money and you want to live in that mess, I love Mason, but people that live out here probably don't want to live in Mason. But if you do, they have the best tax situation in the county. And when I come back here in 3 years and give this same presentation, Mason will probably have the lowest taxes in the county.
Well, that's because they have so much industry.
That's exactly right. Mason has so much industry, and our system is set up to favor business development. It's not set up to favor rural development. And that's a big disadvantage to the rest of us. And so Mason, the other advantage that Mason has, which is the flip of every other school district, their largest class is their senior class, and their smallest class is their kindergarten. So they're getting smaller, where everybody else is getting bigger, which costs a lot of money. And so Mason has a lot of built-in things. They also get more from the state per student than almost any other district. If you can explain that to me, you're doing a good job. I have no clue how that works. Why? I know how it works. I don't know why it works. So Mason's their own little outlier. They can't be part of the conversation because they're their own world. Everybody else in the county really operates about the same way. And Greene County and Clayton County and all of us kind of together, we're all operating in the same boat. So
I'm sure this is gonna hurt the school levies. Our
What?
property taxes going up like this, and 85% going to the
I mean,
schools.
yeah, they're planning on putting another one on.
I would be
soon.
very surprised if they put another one on. So as a result of this, I ran the numbers today, so I want to double check it. I talk to Terry fairly regularly. I'm not gonna. $8.5 million a year
From
is
this.
what the school is going to get just as a result of this reevaluation. That is a very large levy being passed without you guys voting. It's
Yeah.
just being passed by the law, the way that it operates. And so
And does this happen every 6 years? Or
every 3
every
3 years.
But I mean, every 3 years as it goes up, they're going to continue to get more and more. Okay.
And so it's a really good point. Every 3, and they've kind of built that in. If you look at Terry Gonda, treasurer at Little Miami, longtime guy there, knows how this all works. They have a computer system that's set up, and they have built into their formulas that they're going to get this increase every 3 years. The hard part is you got to guess. And school treasurers are conservative people by nature, like the people that become that. They're accountants, they're that kind of people. They're like me. And so they say, yeah, we'll build in 10% increase. And then it's a 30% increase. And so their numbers can kind of get messed up. I've been working with a lot of them, trying to work with myself to say, no, it's a bigger number. And so for 3 years from now, it's going to be 10 to 15% minimum, right? There's a lot of people that are saying it's a bubble, it's going to burst. It's not a bubble, it's not going to burst. It may plateau, it may even out, but they're going to continue to see significant value increases in this area because development's still coming. It's making its way in.
So is this money separate from the money that the state gives each school?
Oh yes, completely
So
separate.
it's totally separate.
But it's a really good point. And it's a big problem that we have to throw in there. They're getting $8.5 million from you.
Mm-hmm.
The state is seeing that and saying, well, wait a minute, you're getting $8.5 million. We don't have to give you as much, the way their formula works. So that formula is going to adjust some of that out and say, no, the state gets to keep that. What does the state do with that? Because that's happening everywhere. Every single school district's going through this in the state, every single one. And so what they should do is say, all right, let's just give it back to them, right? We intended it to go to them. Let's just give it back to them. Will they? I don't know. That's up to them. They don't let me. They just gave $1 billion to the private schools. Could they do that with it? Could they do some Intel project? They could do anything they want with it.
Well, the schools throw stuff away that's perfectly well
Yeah.
to use, so they can order more and use the funds from the state.
There's-
I know that.
There's lots of different things out there, and I
Yeah,
think
there's
things
a
that we have
lot.
to bring up. But yeah, the school is the main part of this. I appreciate the trustees letting me come out and speak because I want people to know this is coming and be prepared. But it has very little to do with these guys. It's really got a lot to do with your school board. I went and spoke to Little Miami, I don't know, a month ago. There were not this many people here. I wish there were, because I really want people to know this is coming. This is just a map of the county that shows in general what's happening. And the amazing thing about this reappraisal for us was how consistent it was. We used to see big differences from one district to another, one area to another, very consistent. The funny part, not funny, but Butlerville, by far the biggest increase in the county. There aren't that many sales there. We had the values really low. And so Little Butlerville is the biggest increase in the county, but kind of an outlier. For the most part, everybody was kind of between that 28 and 35%.
So when you say 20%, you actually reassessed it at 34, 35, or whatever that number is, right?
Yep.
But because that doesn't apply to that only applies to the inside millage, it's going to average out at 20%.
You're going to come give this speech with me. You got it better than
That's why I
anybody.
was confused.
Yeah.
20%.
And so I say this all the time, and it gets confusing. Values, values, values. That's what I talk is values are going up 28, 30, 35%. Taxes are going up 20%. And that's where our neighbors, specifically Butler County, really messed up last time. You heard them in the news a lot, and they use this term, 40%, 40%, 40%. They were talking about values, but they didn't specify that. Taxes actually only went up 18%, but they just kept saying the word 40%, and the headline of every news story was 40%, and then, paragraph 37, they'd be like, but taxes only go up 20, and so was that intentional? Was that a new auditor? I don't know. It doesn't matter. I want people to know both. Yes, your value is going up a lot. Good thing, big value increase. And your taxes are going up a lot, but they're two different amounts because of that reason. The fire department gets nothing. Health department gets nothing. PD gets nothing. And so if the one thing you come away from here is taxes are going up 20% and you spread that to everybody, that will help the cause. Because that's what I want people to hear. That's what I want people to prepare for, is doing that. So
That's what you're saying. You're doing a level 20% all over the whole county to compensate for the fact that Butlerville doesn't sell anything. Everyone's living in their same home, has lived it, and even though you're going to say, okay, it's 20% across the board, and they're going to get an increase of 20%, even though no one's selling a house for more of it.
that's not what I'm saying. Sorry, no, that's not it. Your values are going up what they're going up. So Butlerville's houses are going up the more, not because houses, it's because of land. Most houses out here have a lot of land with them, and we're raising the land values. And so that's why Butlerville's number is going up. And Butlerville's taxes are going to go up more. When I give this presentation elsewhere, it's more like 15%. But in this area, it's 20% because there is a little bit larger value increase.
And what I think I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, is the 20% is really an average.
It's an average.
You're not saying your taxes, everybody's taxes are going to be a flat 20%. Butlerville may be more. Blanchester, you can see 34%. Pleasant Plains, 34. I can't see what Harlan is. What does it say, Harlan Township?
I think it says 35.
35. But again, right, if you're in Clinton, Massey, that could be slightly different. But again, your individual taxes are going to be whatever your property is assessed at.
Every property is going to be different. And some are going to be at 19.2 and somebody's going to be at 25. So
Right.
yeah, please understand this is broad terms. On average, everybody's going to be at 20%. You're going to know your exact number and you're going to know it pretty soon
Based on your value.
based on your value. So, and the rates. And so you're going to get a letter from me in 3 weeks. They get mailed out on the 21st and it's going to have a value on it. That's your specific value. And when you get that letter, the first thing I want you to do is look at it and think to yourself, could I sell my house for this amount? Like today, not in the future, not if things really go well, not if, someone wins the election. Today, could I sell my house for this amount? And if the answer to that is yes, then I want you to hop on the website, which will be right there linked on the page, on the postcard, and there'll be a tax calculator. You put in your new value with your account, and it's going to tell you with pretty close accuracy what your taxes are going to be next year. Like I said, most are going to be around 20%. Some are going to be higher, some are lower, but that's the average. If the answer to that is no, jump on the website. Well, the first thing you should do is call a realtor. Talk to a real estate professional, not me, because I have a vested interest. Go ahead.
Well, we have two parcels. One is just bare land, and then the other parcel has our house and a couple acres. So will we get two postcards?
You'll get one letter with both numbers on it.
Oh,
So the
okay.
multi-parcels get a little different thing, but it's
Okay,
the same
well,
idea.
Two
Yeah.
parcels. So.
Yeah. And so, because they're both going up, your vacant parcel's going up as well.
Yeah.
Everything's going up. And so then if you say no, I really encourage people. I always recommend Chad and Ralph just because they're my buddies and it's free and I know they'll do it for you at exit. But there's other realtors out here, good realtors. Talk to one of them and say, hey, what would I sell it for? Because they have no interest. I have an interest. At least people think I have an interest in your value being higher. I don't, but that's what people think. The realtor doesn't. So talk to them. And if they say, there's no way you could sell your house for that. I got these 3 comps. This is what it thing's sold for. There's a process you can go through, really simple. Right on the website, you click on it, you set up an appointment. You can do it in person, but most people choose to do it over the phone. They go through it and it gets looked at. So that's what I encourage people to do. We don't, I've heard Willie Cunningham say, just call them up, they'll lower your value. 100% false, like 90% of what Willie says. 100% false. But again, you could be one of those 1,100 that we do have wrong. And we want to hear from you, and then we can look at that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Then CAUV will be a better, higher percentage in Hamilton Township than here in Harlan?
Yeah. So CAUV is a whole different world. On October, I should know this. Tomorrow, anybody here remember the Farm Bureau? If you are tomorrow, you might want to skip if you were planning on going because I'm the featured speaker and man, it doesn't get any more exciting. But on October 16th, up at the fairgrounds, I'm giving the Farm Bureau and I and the expert from the state on CAUV are giving our triannual presentation on CAUV. You're going to get the real short version here. That's the big one that lays out everything, how it works, why it works. The long and the short is CAUV is doubling. 100% increase, round numbers, that's real. If you have CAUV, your taxes on the CAUV portion, make sure we listen to that part, on the CAUV portion are doubling. So everything we talked about before doesn't apply to CAUV. If you have CAUV, your taxes on that part are doubling. The part on your house still only going up 20%, but the part that's in CAUV is doubling. That's difficult to differentiate just by looking at the website. You got to really know how it all works. So feel free to call us. We can kind of lay it all out, show you what yours are. The tax calculator will be able to address that for you too. But if most of you, there are some of you that are farmers, and there are some of you that are like me that lived on a farm, got CAUV, but don't know how to drive a tractor, and that's most people in Warren County these days. And so your taxes are doubling, but your income hasn't, right? CAUV, the simplest form, is an income-driven system. It says the income of farmers has doubled over 3 years, so your taxes are doubling over 3 years. That's what the formula says. Mind you, Farm Bureau created CAUV. Constitutional amendment passed by Farm Bureau. they're the ones that set up this formula. And so the formula works that way. Over that 3-year span, income's doubled, so your value's doubled. Whose did it double? Farm owners, right? Because you don't raise your rents, because no farm owners around here ever raise their rents, and farmers like that. You got to talk to your farmer. You need to be talking with your farmers and letting them know, hey, we're eating the cost of this. You guys got to help us out. So that's part of the message we want to get out. Farmers, the real farmers, the guys that are out there all day, every day, really working. I know they don't like that, but I don't see another way to do it. Because again, this isn't changing either. I don't expect 100% increase in 3 years, but the way the formula is set up, it's going to continue to grow. So the next slide shows, I put the farm, this is in Washington Township, Clinton Massey schools, but it'd be almost identical facts for you. That's my little picture. I'm not very good at PowerPoint, but I think it's appropriate. And so you look at this guy's value today, it's a 100-acre farm. We've got it valued at $600,000. Next year, the market value, which means nothing, right? In CAUV world, market means nothing. You could sell it for 10 million, you could sell it for 10, you sell it for 10 million. That means nothing. It's how does the CAUV calculate? So we got the market at 600,000. It's going to move up to 800,000, 30% increase. CAUV value at 150,000, it's going to double, 300,000. Their taxes are going to double. But that kind of to the right there is the savings. They're actually saving more money. This is how CAUV, it's actually working. Their savings are larger now than they were next year than they were this year. It's still around 10 to 15% of market value. That's the facts of it, all right? It's a big increase for farmers. Go ahead.
What were the taxes on this particular parcel this past year?
Right there, $1,787.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're okay, you're okay. And so that's the numbers I know. The other numbers are my guesses, but they're pretty accurate. And so if you're in CAUV, and like I said, the main reason I'm here and getting out there, I want people to prepare. You know, it's September now, which I can't believe. It's September. You're going to get a tax bill in January. I'd rather you have 4 or 5 months to start preparing. Many of you, if not less so out here than most of the county, everybody else is in escrow. And so what's going to happen to all those people that are in escrow? They're not going to get a tax bill. They're going to get this postcard from me. They're going to throw it out because it's another junk mail, and you're going to get a lot of postcards in the next 6 weeks. This is another one. You throw it out. And then the bank's going to call you in April or in June and say, hey, you've been paying us this amount. You owe all of this more, plus your payment's going up. I'm really nervous about those people. It's a big change in the 15 years that I've been working at the county. It used to be the only people that were in escrow were people that were new home buyers. The bank made you go into escrow. Now people have said, hey, it's a lot easier to budget this way. We're just going to keep everything even. And that makes sense to me, but they kind of get out of paying attention. Like when you got to write that check twice a year, you pay attention to it. When it's just part of your monthly payment, you don't. And so there's going to be a lot of angry phone calls when the bank calls them and say your taxes went up. So I'm trying to prepare people, set money aside. The bank won't let you pay more now. They won't, they can't. But set money aside for that amount. For some of us, it doesn't matter. I'll write an extra check. I'll pay a little more. No big deal. But there's a lot of people that this matters to, and I want them to be prepared.
What about fixed people that's on fixed incomes?
It's the biggest thing, right?
I mean, they're going to lose their homes.
It's possible, you know, and it's the big concern that I have. For me, for Chad, for younger people here, our incomes are going up. Our taxes go up, like I showed, you know, about at the rate of inflation. Okay, it's not good. I don't like it. We'll get over it. For people that are retired, your incomes aren't going up. For people that plan, frankly, on dying in their homes, the equity in their home does them no good. You know, that they're not happy about that. They're not going to sell it.
Of Harlan Township.
I know. That's
We call it home for a reason.
100%. And that's one of my slides. That's part of my solution that I'm proposing, which means nothing because nobody in their right mind is sending me to the legislature. But the proposals that I have are to address that. So what about commercial property? For what it's worth, very little in Harlan Township, obviously. It's going up as well, not as much, and their taxes don't go up for complicated reason. But we are raising values on commercial properties, but they will see no real tax increases. Timing and process, I talked about a little bit. You're going to get a letter in 3 weeks. Really, the quicker you can jump on that and look at it and be on it, it's really going to help you. We can get through this stuff in October, the whole month of October. Our whole office, all of our appraisal team, me, nobody's going on vacation. Hopefully nobody's getting sick. It's all about this. If you can come in, if you've got questions, they can get answered then. It's the best time. We can do it next year after you get your tax bill and you're upset. That's when most people come in. It's a lot harder then. You're going to be in a bigger line. There's a formal process you have to go to. The school can be involved. You do it now in October, it's a lot easier for you. So, all right. And then how do we fix this? I think that's the next slide, if I remember it. Yeah, skip that one to that. What can be done? So there's an argument to be made. This is exactly how the process is supposed to work. Values are going up at about the rate of inflation, as the earlier slide showed. The whole plan was that we wouldn't have to pass levies all the time. We would go up at the rate of inflation. It's kind of working that way. I don't agree with that. There's an argument to be made. We can reduce our inside millage. The county has done that in the past. Townships have done that in the past. The problem is the costs of government are going up very quickly as well. The fire department being a prime example, but everything that you have to pay more for, workers, everything else, the township, the school, the county are paying more for too. So I have not heard anyone express that they're going to reduce inside millage this time around like they did 3 years ago.
And you're referring to the tax holiday?
The tax holiday, yes.
Okay, so it's not a permanent reduction.
1 year. 1 year is what that tax holiday lasted. And like 6 people knew that it happened. You know, and really partially on us for not advertising it well, partially because it just wasn't that big of a deal to folks. Again, circling back, it's all about the schools. Unless there's a seismic shift in schools, none of it really impacts your taxes. And so the big thing where I spend most of my time when I'm not in the office, like today, I was in Columbus all day, trying to talk to the legislature about fixes to help people. And to be honest, the group that I'm most concerned about are senior citizens. The homestead program in Ohio is terrible. I don't know if has anybody here on homestead?
We got denied.
Well, yeah, everybody gets denied. No, everybody gets
Yeah,
denied.
because they changed it from when they
Yeah.
first came out with it. It was $250, and I think if you were a senior, on your property, well, then circumstances, if I had a house, and then all of a sudden I didn't qualify because I made too much money.
Yeah, and so what the
And
state
that's not
did,
a whole lot of money, but
I know.
it doesn't take much.
with the state of Ohio, it used to be anybody that was 65 or older got it.
Right.
And then they grandfathered everybody in 2015 and said, you get in, Les Wexner included, and said everybody else after 2015, you've got to make less than $30,000. Adjusted gross income for the whole household. As all of you know, almost impossible to survive in Warren County on less than $30,000.
Do they count Social Security and everything?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
all of your adjusted gross income.
So it's not just earned income?
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it's almost impossible to get anymore. The number's going up a little. It adjusts for inflation. It's at 36. It'll be at 38 next year. Still, nobody gets in. Now, if you're a disabled vet or you're permanently disabled, that income doesn't apply. You can get in. That's almost all of the applicants we get anymore are in that category. I think we need to change that.
What does that? What does the homestead exemption give you?
It takes $25,000 off your value, which is about $400 in taxes. So there's a savings there. It's not huge, but it's a savings. And so I proposed one bill with 2 parts: increase the income and increase the amount. And it kind of, depending on your income, the amount will go up or down, depending on which way you go. That bill went through the Senate unanimously, passed the Senate, has not gotten one hearing in the House. And so that is the kind of thing that I would like to see changed. If you talk to Representative Lips, you talk to the new representative that's coming in, Teska, those are the things that I think need to be changed. It can be changed very quickly and easily with very little expense to the state to help senior citizens. As far as big monumental changes, the only other really change out there, again, is to school funding. The problem with that is Warren County is one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest county in the state. Any school funding changes are going to take money from Warren County and give them to poorer counties. And so while you will hear a lot of people talk about, hey, we've got to fix school funding, it's almost always going to fall on the back of Warren Countyans and others, Lake County, Delaware County, Claremont County, the rich counties in the state. paying for the urban and Appalachian counties. So I don't really subscribe to that belief. It's nice to say in Warren County it doesn't actually work, but I do think we need to help senior citizens. I think they're the most needy in this. There are some proposals out there to help low-income people that are not senior citizens. I can see that as well, but neither of those. For the record, I don't think anything's going to happen. I think everything that I presented earlier is going to be your taxes next year. If you've heard anybody saying something's going to pass, I would be shocked if anything passed this year. And so I would count on what I said happening. If something comes and helps, that'd be great. But I think it's highly unlikely.
So you mentioned earlier that Little Miami's getting what, $8.5 million out of this increase. Is there, you're gonna have information on the auditor's website that shows like the breakdown of like I'm on the northern side up in Clinton, Massey, still Harlan Township at Clinton, Massey schools, but because I've seen some of the reports out there on your website, very lot of data, but is that going to be out there?
It's going to be out there. Yeah, it's going to be out there. It'll break down where every dime of your tax dollars are going, which levies they're going to. October, those probably won't be in October. You'll just have the base numbers in October.
Okay. In
January, once the new tax rates are set by the state, it'll be laid out levy by levy.
And I love the idea of a tax holiday. Is it possible that you might be going outside your lane with that question, but can schools do that?
Absolutely. Schools have done it. They're not going to. I've asked some of them. There's proposals, but they're not going to. I mean, they're not going to. Yeah, you're right. Outside my lane, they're not going to. The county's not going to probably either. There was talk of it. I think they would have. To be honest, your tax holiday just got invested in the tennis center. You know,
in what?
Tennis. $50 million from the county. The tax holiday amounted to about $30 million 2 years or 3 years ago. We just invested $50 million in the tennis center. And that's where the money
went.
And
that's Mason.
That's Mason. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why everything's based on everything's too high in Warren County because of Mason.
Springboro. Now I'll push back a little bit. There is nowhere that has lower taxes than Warren County. Go to any of your neighbors, your taxes are going to be higher than in Warren County. I was in Carlisle last week, and Carlisle, the mayor actually lives in Montgomery County because Carlisle is divided by the county. So I did one council member that lives in Warren County and one council member that lives in Montgomery, or the mayor who lives in Montgomery County. It's almost 50% more for the same property if you're in Montgomery County. So I will push back and say, I don't think you could do better than Warren County, but I will agree. They're still too high. Yeah. That part I agree with. The problem is they're too high everywhere. Like I said, Ohio decided two things, and we can agree or disagree. That is what they are. One, we love local control. We're going to decide here in Harlan Township, Little Miami schools, what we're going to pay, and that's it. That has positives. It has a lot of negatives. And two, we're going to do it off of property taxes. And so we have low state income taxes, low sales tax, low every other tax, but with a lot of property tax. I'm a sales tax guy. You know, when we built the jail, I was a big proponent. Put a little extra sales tax on, because then all those people that come into Mason to go to Tennis, to go to Kings Island, we take their sales tax, and it doesn't affect our people. So I'd like us to do more sales tax. There's some negatives to it, and so there's negatives to every tax. But so that's my little soapbox. I've talked a lot. Other questions that people have? I don't want to take up too much of the trustees' time. Things that I can help with, ideas. Really encourage you. You're on my website, you're looking. I appreciate that. Feedback on ways we can get this out better. You've seen my limited capabilities IT-wise, but we do have people that are better at doing some of that. So if you guys have ideas of ways we can get it out, groups that I can talk to, like I said, I can't do a whole lot about it, but I can help educate. I can help talk to people.
What was that date for the farm?
October 17th. Know my own calendar. October 16th, and that'll be on the website. And all of you that are in CAUV
at the fairgrounds.
At the fairgrounds. All of you that are in CAUV will get a special letter just for you, lucky you, that has your CAUV information on.
Is there? You mentioned on the homestead that disability counts. Is there a limit on your income even on that? If you're
not on disability, but you have to be 100% permanently disabled by Social Security. And then there's no income.
Okay. Well, they told us no.
Okay, well, send it to me. Yeah, I might have part of that wrong because I'll have to look at it. But
Okay.
I know for the vet disability, there's 0, and I don't think there is for the regular disability. But
There was an income on there.
on that one too. Okay.
And from a
Well, maybe
vet
they
standpoint, do
were
they
wrong.
need to be 100% as well?
Vets, yeah, everything's 100% disability. But anymore, the vets are pretty good for putting people at 100%. We used to see a lot of those 30, 50, 70. Anymore, most of them that I see, I guess there's a reason I'm seeing them, but there's a lot more. I mean, it's terrible, but mostly mental health, 100% disabilities that we're seeing for a lot of the men and women that have served. So, and that's a double discount. So they get $50,000 off their property, $800 to $1,000 off property taxes. So that's a good system. I'm proud of that system. I think it's helping people that should be helped. But you know, there's not. We need to help some other people.
You may have said it, who sets the mandate of how much percentage our taxes will go up? Is that Ohio, state of Ohio, or is that?
So I'm going to take the blame because I set the value. So I make that decision. You'll hear other auditors blame the state. That's baloney. The state has to go through and make sure the numbers are accurate. And so there are some auditors that play games and try to keep their numbers low falsely. And it's caught up, and that's a whole mess. So the county auditor's responsibility is to set the values. But I emphasize values because that's where my job, that's where my role in that part ends. After that, the state law sets what the rates are. And so values go up, and some of those rates come down, the fire levy, the DD, and then other rates like the inside millage and like the schools, they don't come down anymore. And that's all set by Ohio law. So we do that all internally, but that's all set by law. The only thing the law says for the value is you've got to set values at market rates. And that's the county auditor's job, is to determine what the market rate for each property is. Now, if I went in and said, hey, everybody in here's value is 100,000, the state would come down and say, no, you can't do that. So there is an oversight to it. I've been doing this a long time. This is my 5th reappraisal. Never once has the state disagreed with my number. It's almost always been identical. It's a mathematical equation. There really shouldn't be much disagreement. When you hear, I'm talking too much, sorry, but the people at the state aren't elected, right? They're people that are appointed there. Auditors are elected. So a lot of times, especially if it's an election year, you'll hear auditors making a lot of noise that they don't want the values to change. It's a game. It's a number. It's set by, it's a formula. And so, like I said, there's mistakes made, but really it's done by the auditor.
So
Well,
the value of
I was just saying, I mean, obviously this is a bad time to be raised on. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying you shouldn't raise them, but I mean, I think, is there any, I mean, did you go not so much that we can't, that, like I said, there's going to be a lot of effect in Harlan Township.
Yeah.
And even CUV, I mean, I'm more worried about CUV more than anything.
Yeah.
But I mean, we got a lot of senior citizens that live in the Harlan Township. And I mean, I'm not saying you go the minimum,
Yeah.
but I just, I think it's going to really change, especially Harlan Township. I don't know about all Warren County.
Sure. No, so yeah, that's a really good point. And I agree with you. The CAUV we have no control over, right? CAUV is a 100% state constitution done by the state. They give us a number that gets applied out. That we have no say. We also don't have a say in the timing. By law, we have to do it this year. And so the only say we have in is where we go to in value. And I can't pick and choose, well, you know, I think it's going to affect these people, or I think, you know, I just can't. And when you do that, you get yourself in trouble. And so Butler County did that. They said Middletown. That was the area they picked. And that was the one they got the most news. These people in Middletown can't afford it. And so they set their values lower and they got sued. And it resulted in massive increases for everyone. So these people that couldn't afford it got hit worse. So yeah, that's the short answer. The way our system is set up, it should take into consideration what you're talking about. It doesn't. And I think in value, you really have to put, you know, kind of like justice. You got to put a blindfold on. Doesn't matter who lives there. What will that house sell for? And we can't go below that. Go ahead.
So I don't understand, if the market or the housing market starts to crash, why wouldn't then you reassess and drop those?
100% would. 100%. Yeah. And so 2009 we did. If you look back at the value, I didn't take it all the way back here, but that was my first year. At that time, I was representing township and representing the auditor's office as their attorney. And in 2009, values crashed, and we dropped values on average in the county by 25%. Unfortunately, nobody remembers that. One, 15 years ago, and two, the same thing that makes rates come down makes rates go up. And so when the values crash, the rates go up, and your taxes don't change very much. And so for a variety of reasons, that's a terrible thing to happen. But if it happens, which is possible, I'm not Nostradamus. I said it's not a bubble. I said it's not going to burst. I don't know that. And if it does, then next year we're going to drop values significantly, or wherever it drops, we're going to do that. But yeah, so that's the answer.
So where did you come up with the CAUVs doubling?
Yeah.
Like, where did you get the 50% from? Was that the state says you got to do 50%, or you just picked, that's how you picked it? Or
No, yeah, the
or-
state.
I mean, where did they get the 50%? Because you're doing the houses 20,
Yep.
and then you're doing all the vacant farm ground 50. So where did that?
And so vacant farm ground is more like 50. So two different things. What non-farm, you're talking about CAUV, not
CAUV.
yeah, okay. So because farmland that's not, anyways, forget that part. CAUV is 100% set by the state, and that's the October 16th presentation. But everything that I talked about for the value increases on homes is based on sales. CAUV could not care less about sales. It's 100% based on income. And so the way the formula works is they take the average crop prices for soybeans, corn, and wheat. They average them out over 5 years. They subtract out cost increases, fuel increases, all these different parts of the formula, and they come out with a per acre amount. They then divide that by the interest rates, and that comes to a per acre. And it's more complicated than that even, is that it varies by soil type. As you guys know, there are some really good soils, actually some out here that's really good, and then there's some really crappy soils. And so depending on what your soil type is, you get a different amount. And so all of this big fancy formula goes into deciding what it is. The long and the short of it is that interest rates didn't change that much over the period of time they're looking at. And crop prices went up so much, even more so than what the cost of fuel went up and other expenses, that it creates a doubling impact. And it's also because values were so incredibly low. So before this change, CAUV was at about 7% of market. You know, when CAUV was created, it was at 50% of market, excuse me. So it's gone down so much that it almost has to self-correct and come back up. So it's still an incredible savings, like I showed, but it's doubling. What I've proposed, and I don't know if you guys like this, I'd like feedback on it. Let's do it every year. Because what I think most people struggle with is the 100% increase. If you got a 30% increase every year, that would hurt, but you'd be able to budget a little better. You'd see it coming. It could correct for the market a little bit. So these 3 years is where I think it hurts. But so I'm answering your question and then throwing in my own aside. So that's how it works.
That's my thing is, you know, crops our prices haven't doubled in the last 3 years. Yeah, we had a good year.
Yeah.
But now we're back under what we've been for a long time. And that's, I mean, your year to year thing would probably be better because this year, I mean, in 25, I mean, the prices are going to hurt farmers
And
if they don't change.
It's worse than that. 25, not even considered in the formula. 24, not even considered in the formula. It's 21, 22, and 23 that they're looking at. And so everything in our system lags so far. And so that's part of the problem. And if we did it year by year, you couldn't take 24 into consideration because you got to have time to implement it. But you should be able to at least take, 23 and use that so it would be a lot closer. The problem is, and this is the honest conversation, I used to oppose my 1 year plan. Now it's my 1 year plan. But 30%, 30%, 30% is a bigger increase than 90% in the third year, right? Because, if you do the math, it went up two, that's more than just going up the 6. And so it's a bigger increase, but I think it's more fair. Nah, that's fair. I think that it's easier for people to plan, easier for people to budget. So if I've talked about it with Farm Bureau a lot. I think the really big farmers oppose it because of what I said. It's actually a bigger increase net wise taxes, and they plan for it and they put it all in. I think the average farmer, it would be a better for. So that's something to talk about. It's been talked about for a decade. It's picked up some steam. There's some arguments we should do property R values every year. When it's 4 and you get a 12% increase, less of an argument. When it's 10 and you get a 30% increase, more of an argument. So those are conversations that are happening. What I hear from most legislators are, let's let this play out. Let's just let it cool down and it'll all go away. They may be right. I don't see that. I can tell you right now in Warren County, values are up 10% in 24. So if we were to do this one more year, add it on, it'd be another 10%. And I see no signs of things cooling down. Assuming it doesn't, 3 years I'm coming back and we're having the identical. I don't have to change my slides. They're going to be identical. I hope that's not the case, really. But if I were a betting man, I'd probably bet on that.
So you could see CAV going up another 50%?
That's so much harder. I don't think so. The reason is what you just said. 25 will be in that equation then, and we know 25 is down. The COVID was such a big reason why crop prices were so up. I don't see that all happening again. So, and the other part of the equation, again, I'm sorry to be going into all this, but that interest rate that you divide things by is such a big part of it. And if interest rates, the high interest rates of the last 18 months aren't included in the equation, and they're going to be included in the next equation. So I would be surprised to see CAUV go up really at all. But I hate saying that out loud because I'm being recorded. And then the three of you guys are going to yell at me. But again, if I was guessing, CAUV will even out, home values will keep going up.
In their calculations, CAV, do they use like history sales of farms?
Not at all. Has no relevance at all. It's just about the crops.
Matt, isn't another one of the problems with the CAUB is that any other assessments that's on your tax bills? I got farms in other counties that's already had that. Everything goes up that percentage. So the schools get 50% more instead of 20%. And that's part of the state calculation problem. I know me and you talked about.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I think that's part of the concern I have is because we're given more in those cases to all those other entities. I got assessments on some of my others for ditches and everything. They went up 80. On other properties, it was 85%.
And you shouldn't see that too much in Warren County. We don't have many assessments unless you've signed up for one. And so there is a little ditch assessment. That shouldn't go up. So everything else should be, people were aware this was coming. They've made a conscious effort to try to keep other things down where they can. But I don't want to kid anybody and be like, yeah, it's all going to be good. It's not great, it's not.
So if most of this money goes to the schools, and you say it's gonna go up another, just like this again in 3 years, because you didn't even count 24 or 25.
Yep.
And I can't see it changing.
Nope.
And so that means that the schools are gonna get even more than $8 million.
Schools get $8 million every single year.
Right.
And so it's not just a lump. They're going to get, it's going to
But it's gonna
increase.
They
keep
get $8 million a
increasing.
year.
Yeah. And
And so
so,
in 3 years, it'll be this 8 million plus another 8 million.
right.
Yeah,
Plus
16
whatever.
it'll be 16 million.
Yeah.
a year.
When do they gonna put a cap on what the?
So that's my other proposal. So I run the legislative committee for the auditors. I think it should be capped at inflation. I don't think schools should be able to get more than inflation without a vote of the people. That's my proposal. That has, not only has that not got a hearing, I can't even get anybody to write it down on paper and submit it. And so the school lobby is considerably stronger than the Matt Nolan lobby. And so I don't see that happening. The good thing is, and you brought up Kings. Why is Kings different? We're all close enough. Kings is on the ballot constantly, right? Every 2 or 3 years, Kings is on the ballot. And so they're voting to keep their taxes high. Your taxes are significantly lower than Kings now because we're not going on the ballot. And as a result of this, I don't think They can prove me wrong. I hope they don't. That you're going to see Little Miami on the ballot again. I don't think you're going to see Clinton, Mass. They're getting this. This is their levy. Every 3 years, you're passing a new levy for them. You're not voting on it, but you're passing a new levy for them. So the whole idea, it's called the floor. Don't worry about that, but you'll hear about it some. By being at the floor, they get so much money every 3 years. They shouldn't have to come back and ask for it. That's the idea of the floor. Doesn't work great because of all the new subdivisions and things like that. But Lebanon, let's use them as an example. That's where I live now. They're not coming back. They're at the floor. They're not going to pass a levy for a long time. You know, Kings is in their own world. Franklin's in their own world. But Wayne, Little Miami, Clinton, Massey, they're all at the floor. And I don't anticipate them needing new revenue because of all this new money coming in. With the big caveat out there, and they'll yell at me because if I don't mention it, if the state cuts their money, that's a different story. So if we give them 8 million and the state comes and takes 7, then that might be a different story. But assuming the state doesn't do that, I wouldn't expect them to do that.
You're talking about all this money is for operating levies
100%.
as opposed to bond issues for new schools and things. That's completely separate, right?
Completely different. So the bond levy that we passed a while ago when they built the new high school, every time the value goes up, that rate comes down and you don't pay any new money on that. So that bond levy, every single dollar, it's a really good question. Every single dollar goes to the operating fund. Everyone.
See, in Goshen, we also have a 1% income tax.
You do. I think that's an interesting, so it's on the bottom of the slide there. I think it's something to really think about. Lebanon just did this. It's partially my idea, which is stupid because then I ended up paying more. They lowered their property tax for their fire department and they raised their income tax to help pay for their fire department. They set the money for that. You can't do that as a township, so it doesn't do you any good, but it benefits senior citizens and people on fixed incomes because they don't have as much income. So it doesn't hurt them. So I kind of like that at the local level. I'm a conservative Republican. Income tax are terrible, right? That's just the way of thinking. But there's really 3 types of taxes: sales, income, and property. And I think using a combination of those 3 where we can is better than pouring them all into the property tax bucket. But
Yeah, because you're saying the property tax, the 8.5 million that goes to Little Miami.
Yep.
That could be pulled away.
Yep.
Whereas if you had a local tax,
Yep.
it would all stay here.
and you'll remember,
It wouldn't go to some other.
man, there's different parts of that. Yeah, that formula will take some of that too. Yeah, they're gonna get. Yeah. Don't kid yourself on that part. But it's something to think about. Like I said, I hope all of you go occasionally. I said this. I was on a podcast yesterday. You all know your 3 trustees. All good guys. You know them. Can everybody in here name your 5 school board members? I'm impressed if you can. I can't name your 5 school board members. I know a couple of them. I know Bobby because she's been around forever. But I honestly, I couldn't name them all. Maybe I could. Give me a minute. But most people can't. They control all of this. They are the center of all of this. When they passed that 13 mil emergency levy 12 years ago, there was a lot of talk of an income tax at that time. They didn't do a great job the way they presented it, but I think it would have been better. In hindsight, I voted no at the time. I lived here. I voted no. But I think in hindsight, that probably would have been the better option, as if we'd have done a little of both. Hindsight's 2020.
Is there any historical data that where you talk about like Little Miami? You used them a couple times. 8.5 million going to them.
Yep.
Is there any data that historically say what percentage the state may take of that to offset? Like you said, the state may say, well, now you're getting 8.5 million more. I don't have to give you as much.
There isn't, because the whole state formula was changed last year. And that's why I'm using some more than usual. I am hedging my bets. Usually I'm pretty direct. I say what it is. I've been around a long time. This is what it is. This is what it's going to be. I can't do that in this case because literally no one knows. It got passed last year. Somehow when they passed it, they really didn't take this fact into consideration. And so all of the schools were anticipating a lot more money from the state. The way the formula worked, it was supposed to give every single school district more money, but especially some of these more rural districts, they were all expecting a lot of money. But it failed maybe failed, I don't know. It didn't consider the huge increases in value. And so I think there was kind of an assumption, okay, yeah, this money will come back, but then we'll all dump it back in. The problem is state revenues are down. They're going to have budget problems. Are they going to still take this and give it all to the schools? Nobody knows. So anybody that tells you they know is lying. And when your school treasurer says he doesn't know, he's not lying. He really doesn't know. We hope that they will give it back to the schools to help offset some of this, but we really don't know.
But put this, the county, say if they get the 8.5 million
Yeah.
from the county
Sure.
to Little Miami, what are they allowed to use it for?
And any operating expense.
Any operator?
Yeah. Yeah, there's very little rule. There's buckets.
I mean, it's for salaries and everything. Okay.
It's
But
87%.
not building, but not building.
Not building. Well, I mean, no, they could use it on building.
Okay.
They could. They won't, but they could. But I think 87% of the school's budget, it's around there, goes to salaries. I mean, that is government. Government is, the buildings and things like that. I mean, they're a number. They exist. They cost something. It's all about paying teachers, paying firefighters. That's what everything goes to. Your point about throwing stuff out. It's legitimate. I think we should look at those things.
I know,
think,
because I know
right,
somebody that
no,
threw it out.
it's legitimate, but it's really about salaries. How can we control salaries? How can we get those down?
Isn't there some kind of new voucher program in public schools where they give money for students to go to private schools?
$1 billion has gone to your private schools as a voucher program. And so if you choose to go to a private school and meet the income requirements, which are significant, you can have a lot of income, but it tiers down. You take that voucher and it goes to your private school.
But you're still paying property taxes to your local school.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Everybody pays property, right? Almost nobody in here has kids in school, right? But you're still paying property taxes, right? I mean, that's just how our system is set up. And that's their argument. Hey, we've always paid property taxes and we didn't get anything from them. Give us a voucher to go to private school. Okay, I can get along with that argument, fine. The problem I have, and I'm kind of big about this, what did the private schools do when the vouchers got passed?
Raise their tuition.
Raise their rate immediately. They didn't even hide it. They put it in the letter to the students, parents, saying your rates are going up and they're going up the same amount as the voucher. That was the most predictable thing to have happen, and so that's where $1 billion went. We can argue whether or not it's good or bad. I'm a public school guy, kindergarten through law school, every day to public school. So I got a little chip on my shoulder in that regard. But, there's arguments for and against. It is what it is. It's not going away. We're going to be giving $1 billion to private schools for the foreseeable future.
I got one more. I know you said your slide that commercial stuff wasn't going up. I know Warren County trying to keep commercial and one,
Come back. Values are going up in commercial properties.
okay, but not as much as what home residents are. How I know Warren County's wanting to keep commercial stuff and that, and they want to bring more.
Yep.
But a lot of commercial people they got the business, they can afford it more than a lot of residents.
Yeah.
How come we ain't going up the same way on them?
Super good question. I never raised commercial values. So, and my predecessor, never once. So he was there 28 years. I've been there 15. Never once ever raised commercial values. It's the first time. It's scaring me. These guys aren't going to know what happens. So on average, 15%, their values are going up. That is not based on sales. There are no sales. Commercial properties don't sell for a variety of reasons. When they do sell, there's this fake little trick you use. I'm a real estate lawyer. It's called the LLC loophole. The auditor never finds out that they sold. And so my raising of commercial values has very little to do with sales, because there aren't any sales. So I'm just going and telling them, listen, guys, you're going up 15% because your value is 15% higher. That's going to be a little hard to sell. So that's why it's where it's at. But they have to go up. They're too low. Commercial properties, just the cost to build these buildings has gone up so much that the value is higher than where they're at. The complicated part, and I've talked so much, I can't believe you guys have kicked me out, but when their values are going to go up, commercial pay a different rate than residential. It's a higher rate. And that rate is going to come down, still well above the residential rate. So their taxes are going to net out to zero. Not zero, but zero increase. So even though I'm raising almost all commercial values by 15%, their taxes are not actually going to go up. Very complicated. You're going to get a little more money out of it here and at the school, but I mean, there's not a whole lot of commercial value, frankly, in Harlan Township. But so we are raising 15%. That's why it's not higher. So I don't think I can justify higher because there aren't any sales to justify it. I can come to you and say, 6 houses sold. This is why your house is going up. I can't go to Hilton on Mason Montgomery and say, this is why you're going up, because no other hotels have sold to justify that. That's the answer.
I have a question on the CAUV, when you made a remark that you're gonna go over so many years, but it won't probably take in 23, and of course, it wouldn't be 24 because the harvest's not in yet.
Yep.
But you probably even, where's the cutoff, 22?
Yeah, so again, it's not me.
You've got some better years or whatever, but I don't think the yield's gonna be there for the soybeans this year.
It's not going to be.
No. But then when you're saying, it's based on income from soybeans, all the crops, but you're not factoring in all the expenses that a farmer has.
No, absolutely they are. Yeah. The formula takes all of that. I mean, I would really encourage you. I'm not going to do it justice, and I don't want to, but to come to our meeting, or I can send you the slideshow on CAUB. It really is comprehensive. Not perfect, as we discussed, not perfect, but it takes into consideration, it's an Olympic average of the 5 years that they use of both expenses and incomes on various crop types and various soil types. I mean, it is really comprehensive. The flaw, as it's been pointed out by you and others, is the timing. We're talking about what's happened in the past, and we're not talking about what's happening right now, but you're paying your taxes right now. And there's really it's not that much different than income.
But you mentioned about every year, possibly going in every year.
Yeah.
You would still be at least 2 years in the rear to have that information to base it on.
100% right. 100% right.
You're not going to be from year.
There's no way we could be. Yeah, right. Unless we're, guessing at the future. Everything we've got to do is on somewhat on the past. It's just a question of how far past. I'd like to close that gap a little, but you're absolutely right. It can never be perfect.
Didn't hear you said about crops, the soils and everything,
Yeah.
But you're not saying about what the cost of equipment and the labor and everything to.
100% I am. Yes, that is all in the formula.
Right?
All of that is in there. And like I said, I can get you the whole thing. It is a massive document, but they consider all of that. Again, not perfect, and it's doing averages, and it's doing things where, it's an Ohio-based system. It's not a Harlan Township-based system. So the fact the price of labor may be different somewhere else, that you can get a combine cheaper somewhere, none of that's considered. It's a Ohio-based system. Now, it does look at specific soils, but it is, So they do absolutely consider all of that in it.
I have one question. So when we get this letter that gives us our new values,
Yes.
and we go onto your website and plug that in, so is the percentage of property tax different for each value of home? It's not across the board, same percentage.
Right.
So if you have a house that's, say, 500,000, your tax base could be 25%, where somebody else's is 250, theirs could be 18% or 20.
You're saying the increase or
The increase on your taxes
Yeah.
change based on the value of your property?
No.
No.
The increase of your taxes change based on the percentage that yours goes up. So if you're let's say you're at 100,000 and your value goes up 30%, your taxes are probably going to go up 20%. If you're at 500,000 and your value only goes up 10%, your taxes aren't going to go up hardly at all. They may only go up 2 or 3%. It's all about that percentage increase. So if you're the average, if you're a 28% increase, which is about the average for out here, your taxes are going to go up about 20%. If you're higher than the average, for whatever reason, your little part goes up 40%, your taxes are going to go up 25, 26%. Right, like Butlerville. If you're lower than that, for whatever reason, your value only goes up 14%. Your taxes are going to go up a lower percentage. So it's all based on that. My 20% number is because that is an average, and it gives everybody a rough number to base it off of. You're going to have an exact number here in a few weeks. But I couldn't go through person by person and tell you what it is today. So I'm using that 20% as a rough average. Somewhere you are going to be higher, somewhere you're going to be lower, but that's the average.
Do you have the presentation you were talking about, the CAUB or the agriculture? Do you have that in a slideshow or a PowerPoint?
I do. I'll get it to you. Yeah.
Would it be okay for us? Like put that on our website?
Absolutely. Yeah. Get it out there. And I'm trying to get the one from the state that they've got updated. And so, yeah, I will get all of that to you guys to share.
So all this is because the cost of living's went up, basically.
It's because the cost of home.
Everything.
Yeah, not so much the cost of living, the price of your home. Go ahead, man.
In other counties, they've talked about having to get an appraisal to argue the value that's been given. Is that what we're gonna have to do?
Don't do that. Don't do that yet. In October, don't do that. If you think that the value is too high, come and talk with one of our people and explain why. If that doesn't go well, which it may not, then it's maybe worth talking to an appraiser. And you can go through the formal process, which will walk you right through. It's not really formal. It's just one page you got to fill out. But yeah, I mean, that's what they talk about in Hamilton County. And that definitely helps. Don't get me wrong. It for sure helps if you get an appraisal. But that costs money, you know, and so you say a standard appraisal is going to cost you $1,500 to save you $200 in taxes. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, you know, but come talk to us. I really encourage people, if you get that letter and you say, no way am I selling my house for this amount, come talk to us right away. Don't stew over it. Don't get upset. Come talk to us. Mistakes happen. I had one the other day. We hit an extra zero. Like, these are human beings typing the numbers in. Zeros get hit. That person should come talk to me. Their $250,000 house is now $2.5 million. That person should come talk to me. We caught it. We caught it. But things like that happen. So we've had people that have come 3, 4, 5 years later to complain. It's too late. We can't go backwards. So come in, talk to us. Like I said, I no way want anyone to leave here saying, hey, Matt told me if we come in and talk, my value goes down. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying we'll have a conversation, and there are some that will.
You have everybody in here.
Yeah, well, there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot. I'm ready. Well, I appreciate all the time. You guys were very generous. I'm sorry to stretch out your meeting this long, but I really appreciate everybody's time. Email, cell phone, all of that's available. Call me. You know, happy to talk. Like I said, if you've got groups that I can talk to help explain it more, I'm always willing to do that. But always feel free to call and let me know what I can help.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you guys. Appreciate seeing everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we can holler and scream all we want, but it's not gonna do any good with him. It's with the state, so. Steve, you want to do a trustee's report?
Seems like yesterday. All right, so for Dusty's reports, Squad 82 was placed on Gov Deals. It was a 2002 E450 and it sold on Gov Deals for $9,800. That was about $3,000 more than the other squad that we sold about 5 years ago. So that's a pretty good price for that. It's already been picked up. So Jenny, I can see you should be seeing a direct deposit from them.
What was the amount?
$9,800. We were awarded the State of Ohio EMS grant. We typically get this grant every year, and it's based upon seatbelt tickets throughout the state. So it is $42,2098. This year, it dropped a lot during COVID because they weren't pulling anybody over. It dropped down about $900. And we are back up quite a bit from that.
That was $42,2098.
Correct.
Sure, thank you.
Fire department's been working through hose testing. Every year we have to pull the hose off the truck and test it to a set pressure, check it for leaks and breaks, all those things. That is being worked on as we speak, actually. That should be completed here relatively soon. The cadets of the township, along with Salem Township and Clinton Warren, did a all-day training this past weekend. Just an introduction for those young people, 13 to 18, on all aspects of the fire service. They were up at the training tower at Clinton Warren. I got to do some training up there 9 Lincoln also provided the food for lunch for that day. Last thing he has, the 9 Lincoln car show will be held at Station 81, September 21st from 9 to 3. There is food trucks and local vendors there. So September 21 from 9 to 3 at the firehouse.
Do they have that on their Facebook page?
I do not know the answer to that.
Yes.
Yes.
It is. You guys have any questions for Dusty's report?
No.
Steve, you ready for the administrator?
Yep. Try to keep it short with a long meeting tonight. Not looking for a lot of discussion here tonight, but Larry and I have been looking at some different options. We put a lot of money into the boom mower. This year it has it's had a lot of use, starting to get a lot of wear on it, and have been looking at the possibility of using an excavator to take the place, a dual roll machine. We did get prices on a tractor boom mower. We're going to be at least $200,000 for an equal replacement. Got some rough pricing on like the Momax that the state uses. We're somewhere in the $250,000 range for that. So kind of had the idea to look into they're making more attachments for skid loaders, more attachments for excavators, for our road work, for our culverts, our mini excavator, which we have to keep a small one for the cemeteries. Doesn't always fit those jobs because it is such a small machine. So just looking at different options there. The numbers I've gotten so far, it's about half the cost of a tractor boom mower for a excavator with a brush mower attachment, and we could use it for more things. So just trying to figure out a way to save some of the tax dollars. It's not quite as convenient as a tractor would be, but if we're looking at, first of all, is it going to work for us and fill that role that we need for brush cutting? That's the primary goal. But if we can the goal would be to spend less money. I'm not sure it's going to be in half overall, but significantly less money and have a machine that'll do more than just one thing. Kind of goal there. So something to think about. We're gathering numbers, looking at different machines to see what's going to work for us going forward. So just want to put that out there that we are looking at those options. Any questions, comments?
Be way slower, won't it?
It is slower. So we do know it's going to be slower for travel time. We know we're going to have to haul it. It's going to involve getting a heavier trailer. So there's definitely some downside. That's why we're kind of taking our time here and trying to demo a few, go look at some. Definitely going to be slower travel. The inconvenience of having to haul it. But the fact that we'd be able to do more than one thing with it, it looks like it's going to be somewhere near half the cost of what a tractor boom mower is going to be. And like we talk about with inflation, equipment, anybody who here buys farm equipment knows farm equipment has gone up ridiculously over the past 5 years, 4 years, especially since COVID with the inflation there. So just looking at a way to not spend as much money, get something that's going to work for us, and maybe do more things at the same time. We know it won't do everything as well as a single-use unit, but maybe we have to make some concessions there for that.
ODOT's not had much luck with their Momax. They've been able to use it twice this year.
Okay.
It's been in the shop every time.
It is a small manufacturer that makes those. With an excavator, we would get local service, whether it be a D or a Kubota, a case, obviously used for more things across the board. The maintenance crew is still working on 132 maintenance building. They're now putting the insulation back up on the outside wall. So we've gained that one bay in that building. Again, concrete is scheduled for later on this month. The videos from the meetings, as well as being on YouTube, are going to be kept on a hard drive. I got that hard drive in, and it'll be kept across the hallway in the records retention room because my computer's filling up rapidly with these 2 and 3 hour meetings. I'm running out of space. So we'll just keep that here. I'll move them over, keep it across in records retention somewhere. At the cemetery, Edwardsville, we're working on setting up a meeting next week with work engineer's office to discuss that drainage issue and get that project kind of rolling. That's all I got.
You guys have any questions for Steve?
Nope.
No. Well, you guys have been here a long time. Is there anybody here that was not here for the auditor that has any community comments? We'll kind of hit on that real quick. So anybody needs to leave. Let's go to old business. Ed?
I have none.
I had none. So you touched on the cemetery issue. Still working with prosecutor's office on the Little Miami Gig lease renewal. They do want to renew. That's all I have for Steve. Do you have any old?
No.
Jenny?
No.
New business. Ed? None. Kevin? None. All right, we had a couple of siren fails today. I notified Dusty. He was notifying Warren County, State Route 123, Whitaker Park, and also one at Middleborough did not go off. So he's checking into that. And I would like to look into doing a policy sometime here in the future concerning injured employees when they're on duty and something happens, like the incident we had there with Jeff.
Yep.
I know they get so much of their pay, but I think there might be something we need to look into as far as giving them a couple of months or something, if they can't do light duty or something, you know. But I think we need to have a little further discussion on that in the future. And then I have an email here from the prosecutor's office that we're going to need to do an executive session. Or ORC 121.22G5.
Wait a minute, 121, the same as normal?
Yeah, but it's G5. Matters required to be kept confidential by federal law, regulations, or state statutes.
I do have new business.
Oh, okay, let's do that first.
While I was doing the checks, because of the township and basically the road construction that we did an appropriation of $105,000 for contracted services. We went over that, so I technically have to, in the minutes, put that I took $25,000 out of the appropriation. This is all within the funds, the same fund of the road and bridge. I'm taking $25,000 out of small tools and I'm moving it to contract services. I just have to have that put in the minutes. So no money has changed within funds, it's just within the appropriations.
Okay. Mark, I have a question before y'all go into executive session. Is there any more new business, or is because Well, it depends on what we come out. oh, I see. I didn't know if there was anything else on the agenda or not. Right? Right. You're going to go into executive session and come back, and there's still business to discuss. That we may want to Possibly. stay.
Yep.
Okay. I'm here for you. All right. You've got all that written down. Did you get to?
You might have to send that to me because that was a lot that you were rattling off.
All right. I'll make a motion. Second. Roll call. Mr. Brzezinski.
Yes.
Mr. Kern.
Yes.
Myself, yes. And then Jenny and Steve, I'll need you both to come with us.
Just as you stay in the room, I will mute the audio, but I let the video run. That way there can't be any questions about whether or not it was cut and edited. It all just runs through. So,
And what's being shown now on the YouTube? Is it what's on your
No,
screen? Or is it
no, it's not. It's
You are.
switch video.
It's
Front and center. Right?
What do you say?
Your
You
YouTube
are.
is front center. Yeah.
You're watching it.
That was on there.
That was on the camera.
I don't want
For tonight.
We're back. Is that- Yeah, okay. At this time, I'll make a motion to adjourn an executive session, and we will take action. Second. All right, roll call. We'll do a roll call on everything.
Mr. Jazinski,
Yes.
Mr. Kern.
Yes.
Mr. Shelton.
Yes. All right, we've received some communication, that we're gonna have to take action this evening due to an oversight of the ballot language. I'll move to adopt a resolution rescinding the resolution to proceed with submission of the question of the tax to electors and authorizing withdrawal of the question from the November 5th, 2024 general election. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Do the roll call.
Hang on, I'm flipping pages.
What's this resolution number going to be, Jenny?
090424-1. And who seconded that? Okay, roll call, Mr. Brzezinski,
Yes.
Mr. Kern.
Yes.
Mr. Shelton.
Yes.
Zero 090424-1.
And then also I'm going to make a motion that we adopt resolution adopting a review period for elections related legislation that would require the board. See, whenever the Board of Trustees as the legislative body governing the operations of the township and as the taxing authority for the township and all departments thereof determines that it will propose a tax levy to the electors of the township, the board's legislation relating to the placement of such tax levy on the ballot shall be presented to the board by the head of the township departments proposing the tax in an open meeting in compliance with RC 121.22, not less than 7 days prior to the vote by the board to adopt the legislation. I have a second.
Roll call, Mr. Brzezinski.
Yes.
Mr. Kern.
Yes.
Mr. Shelton.
Yes, and that was 090424-2.
Correct.
This time, I will open the floor to any questions.
You explain what you just did.
Yeah,
Layman's
exactly.
terms.
Yeah.
Okay, I have not really a question, but like a sort of question. So there was a water main break on the corner of 132 and 122 or 123. And Western Water came out and had that corner all dug up for days and days and days. Well, when they finished, they left it a total disaster. It's an eyesore, it's a mess. And they haven't come back and fixed it or cleaned it. It's not my property, but it looks like crap. And they should come out and clean it up.
Oh, I agree, but unless the property owner complains, they're not gonna do anything.
I had the same thing up at the corner of Middleborough and 132 as
Yeah.
well.
They did the same thing.
It's come right down that way. It's Township straightened up and cleaned up. And a lot of that has to do with the property owner.
Really?
Property owner might say, well, just let it settle for a while and come back. And so we don't know what the arrangements were with the owner and Western Water.
I know it's probably been what, a month maybe?
It was a big mess.
And where it hasn't rained, nothing settled. It looks like they've been four-wheeling through there.
What was your question?
I don't know, my question was off of his question.
I think what I heard is you're taking the levy off the ballot and you had a second resolution that before any new proposed levy goes on the ballot, that the trustees have to see it 7 days before.
Yeah, the language.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, there was a lot of words there, make sure we understood it.
there's an issue with the ballot language. I called and spoke with Chief Bennett this morning. This has been going on. We found this about a week ago. Friday.
Not even.
Yeah, it was done Friday. And due to that wording of the ballot, it's not what the trustees originally approved. And unfortunately, I know you put a ton of work into this. Steve put a ton of work in this. The levy committee's members have put a ton of work into it. I mean, we all gave up tons of time with our family for months, meeting and trying to get this done. And because a simple inaccuracy, we had to remove it.
Did this happen up there? Did they not type it right?
We're still researching everything to get to the bottom of it. I don't want to put blame on any certain individual. I mean, I'll leave it at that for now. It's.
Basically, it was a clerical oversight, is what I heard, right, or clerical error or something. So the
Basically,
language isn't,
Yeah,
the language isn't what you want on the ballot. So it's
right.
being
It's not what was.
So,
We agreed upon.
Right.
right, it's too late to change it.
And if we continue down the road and leave it, then we open ourselves for lawsuits.
So then, is there, it might be too soon to ask the question, but is there a plan, or what are your thoughts for putting it back on the ballot at some point in the future?
Well, Dusty's not here this evening. I've had discussions with Steve, Dusty. It's gonna be tough. This was our shot.
Yeah, I mean, in light of what Matt Nolan just presented with 20% increases and
Yes.
doubling of CAUV.
Yes. Which is
And
killing.
next year is when people are gonna feel that pain.
It's almost like they want to do away with agricultural, in the county and put houses up everywhere. I mean,
It's not just the county, it's the country.
well, I know.
Don't worry about that.
I know, but there needs to be some, and I can't blame, you can't blame the county auditor. He's got a job to do. Ultimately, that part falls to the state. And we did everything we could to get this corrected. Steve's made multiple phone calls, emails. I've done the same. And we're beyond the deadline and they would make it, they won't correct it.
Okay.
So. Where it sits, we've got to come up with a plan. We're gonna have to.
We'll be contacting you, Frank.
Well, we've got, we've
What's
got to come up with a game plan because, we got to do something. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I want to say that, but I can't.
What did he say? I missed that.
Well, here.
Oh,
That sucks.
oh, it sucks. Oh, yeah. I was just sitting here thinking that.
No, it does. But
Yeah, now it's back.
we got to do something. We got to come up with some kind of game plan. Because it just,
Talk Little Miami schools into giving
Yeah.
folks a tax holiday.
was that 8.5 million extra?
Additional.
A year.
Additional.
That's on top. Yeah, they still get the money from the state.
And then
No,
he
he
said in
missed-
3 years,
Like,
it'll
why do they
probably be
get
the
that kind of
same,
money?
so it'll be 17 million a year.
Yep.
they get.
And they waste.
Oh, you have no
More.
idea.
That's more.
When I said they throw stuff away,
Oh, I know.
they take perfectly good desks,
Mm-hmm.
faucets, sinks, anything, and throw it in the garbage in the dumpster so they can tell the state we need new ones.
They were looking at $500,000 to tear this building down and just leave a vacant lot. It's a perfectly good building, right,
Yeah,
Bridget?
It's an amazing building.
We need to get new people.
Good bones.
So anyway, the trustees have had to make a very hard decision this evening. We is what it is. We're gonna have to come up with something. Welcome to being a trustee, Ed. Kevin.
We have any other community comments?
Dusty Bennett just came out and did our annual inspection, fire inspection for Bright Acres. Everything passed, so everything's great. And then I have a meeting Friday with a potential rental in the gym for December.
Okay, is that the one I sent you the other day or?
No, this one's the one that personally reached out.
The one I sent you, did she schedule?
Yes.
Okay.
No, she said she would get back to me. I haven't heard back. But I did meet with Gail too, with the Daughters of Revolutionary thing.
Daughters of the American Revolution.
That one, yep. And they said everything looks great. I showed them the gym. They liked everything, so.
That's what I was looking, that's what I meant.
So yes, so they will be, now that they've seen this space, they're gonna start the promoting and try to get the officials here and all
Well,
of that.
I received a call from Gail,
Okay.
and apparently this facility is too far from Edwardsville Cemetery.
Okay.
So they're not going to use the gym.
Okay. That's not what she said when she left, but all right.
I don't understand 4 minutes, but
Edwardsville, like.
because she was looking at the fire
Yes.
department, and that's even
Edwardsville,
farther.
yeah. Yeah, yes.
So anyway, they're gonna, I guess they're gonna do she's supposed to send me a flyer on this. I think it's gonna be in October. Is that what she was looking at?
Yes.
And, they're gonna just do a little thing at the cemetery for refreshments and
I will
have the
take her.
ceremony and everything at the cemetery.
Oh,
So hopefully it don't rain on.
Well, that's why I felt like she said they didn't want Whitaker, because they said this is gonna be state officials. We wanted a nice facility.
Yeah, she
They
decided.
just don't wanna pay any money. That's probably what it is.
No, we
They
offered
weren't-
for free.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
got a community event for people to attend.
I figured they just, cause they don't have a lot of money. I know people that
Yeah,
do that.
nope, it was free of charge. Just use our facility and
Oh,
have
wow.
all the people here.
That's not even hard.
No,
Walk there almost.
well,
Well, I mean.
when I stated we're not Mason, she said, you're not even Hamilton Township. And I said, and
Are
I'm
you
glad.
kidding?
So,
Why would
anyway,
take
that's
her
where
off-
that is.
I would take her off the calendar.
Yeah, she can take her off the calendar.
Wow.
Where did you take it?
I can't believe you said that. to me. She doesn't live around here, does she?
No, I think she lives in Hamilton Township.
Doesn't surprise me. We live there too, but we don't like any of the new people that moved in. We don't live there no more.
Motion to pay the bills.
Make a motion to pay the bills.
Second. Correspondence?
Nothing.